It's termite season.
Hi, it's me.
And bugs fear the blue trucks from Essential Pest Control. Go blue at Essential Pest Control. We'll eliminate those bugs, bees, and termites. And stop paying too much to that national provider. Buy local for great service and affordable rates. Call Essential Pest Control because termites fear the blue.
Run for your life.
Call for the blue trucks from Essential Pest Control. 886-3029. That's 886-3029. Or check online at essentialpest.com.
Welcome to Inside Track with Bruce Ash and Ed Wilkinson on the Live the Dream Media Network.
Good morning.
Hi, Bruce.
It's sort of unlike radio. It sort of like comes at you, in 2 seconds.
And here we are.
Hello, everybody. A very pleasant good evening to you, wherever you may be. It's Ed Wilkinson and Bruce Ash on the episode number 2 on Inside Track with Bruce Ash. And Eb, great seeing you again.
Good to see you, Bruce.
We've been talking about you coming on the show and joining me. And Chris has been talking about it, and I've been talking about it in episode number 1. And Eb and I have known each other. I was thinking about this last night. I've known you. You've known me, I think, for give or take about 20 years.
I think that's pretty close.
And I remember you came after work. You came by the house. You had a bottle of wine.
That is true.
We sat and chat in our living room at our old house, and we kind of became fast friends. And refresh me, because we haven't talked about this in a while. At that time when I met you, you were friends with Francie at that time?
Oh, absolutely.
How long had you known Francie before that?
Oh, God.
This is Emil Francie we're talking about, the late, great
I
Emil
met
Francie.
Emil Francie the second time in 2003.
Okay.
I met him, I want to say, back in the early 90s, mid-90s.
On what occasion?
Probably 94, 95.
Yeah.
We crossed paths somehow. I still can't remember
Probably
how.
about firearms in some fashion. Maybe at an NRA.
And we were, this is prior to me knowing that he was involved with the NRA.
Oh, okay.
And we started talking.
What do you like, rear end you in a car?
No, I can't remember the exact thing, but I remember us talking, and he commented on my name, Eb.
Yeah.
What's it short for?
All right, so tell everybody, because I get that comment all the time. What's with this Eb thing?
So what I tell people initially,
it's not just that your mother was dyslexic.
Well, yeah, initially I tell people, well, Mom was dyslexic, it should be Ed, but here I am. But it's short for Elbridge.
Yeah.
But I initially tell people with a straight face, it's short for Eber Snidely, Nose Wobbler, Mangrove Smith Jr.
Wow.
And I keep it straight, and I see how long it takes them before they start laughing. But it's short for Elbridge. Old English, Elbridge Gerry, signer of the Declaration of Independence, governor of Massachusetts.
And there's an Elbridge who's now a deputy assistant at the Defense Department?
Elbridge Colby.
Colby, yeah.
Yeah, we're related.
Really?
Yes.
How directly or indirectly?
Well, indirectly we are. How directly? I don't know. I haven't figured that part out yet.
All right.
I was going to call him up. Elbridge? This is Elbridge.
So how long have you lived in Tucson? When did you come here? And talk a little about that. I want to talk about your business.
Okay.
It's helping my family as well as my sisters.
I came here the first time in 1984. I was with the Marine Corps. We were doing some work out here. Can't talk about that. Came back in 88. I fell in love with the desert.
Yeah.
When my late wife and I had a chance to move, I introduced her to Tucson. She initially didn't want to come, but she fell in love with it. So been here since like July of 88.
Oh, that was a perfect time to come, because if you can live through June, July, August, when you first, I always tell people if they're planning to move to Tucson, don't make it in January. Okay.
No,
that's because that's a false flag, right? You need to come here like June 15th. Ideally,
exactly.
You
need it to be 120 with storms on the horizon.
Right. Right.
But I had been stationed in 29 Palms, California.
So you were used to it.
So I was used to it. The one thing I wasn't used to is we didn't have fast food. We had Ma Penn's burgers.
Wow.
We didn't have a hotel to speak of. We had the 29 Palms Inn. The next closest city was, 45 minutes away, Yucca Valley.
Yeah.
And then, an hour and change away, Palm Springs. But
so for Marine Aviator, for the benefit of people listening and watching, Eb was a Marine Aviator. You flew the Bronco.
OV-10 Broncos.
And I didn't know this until I started Googling OV-10s. It also could fire missiles and had fire capability, right?
Correct.
So you were one of those guys. And you always say that you serve kind of in between conflicts.
Because of me, the Earth was safe. Nothing was going on.
But it's it's basically a forward observer, right?
Correct.
But you could shoot and do all that kind of stuff as well.
Yeah, missiles, rockets. We had machine guns on board. We could put a minigun underneath. We could drop Navy SEALs out of the back.
Wow.
And that was a good time.
Oh, wow.
So we were talking about a guy earlier, Craig Sawman Sawyer, Navy SEAL. He's jumped out of the back of those. I don't know if we had helped him at all, if I personally have. I can't, we didn't get to know the guys. We just put him in the back, said, hang on. But great airplane. We could land on dirt roads and did. That was a,
kind of like a King Air.
Kind of like a King Air.
Just a little less comfortable.
Right, exactly.
So you
Bob Hoover, famous pilot.
There you go.
Okay, did his Aero Commander show, and he did it in the OV-10 Bronco when they were selling it to the Marine Corps.
Oh. So why did you join the Marines?
Because they're the best. That and I couldn't read. I mean, if I could read, I'd go into the Army, but I knew red crayons tasted the best. So
that's right.
So here I am.
So you come to you depart from the Marines as a full-time officer,
right?
And now you have your next path in your career. What did you decide to do, and why?
Well, I decided to go into one of the 3-letter agencies, but my wife said no. So the only other thing I could do, I'd taken finance courses in college.
Yeah.
I thought, well, I'll just do this. So I got started managing money. The first, few years were brutal. I got in January of 1987.
Oh, that was
9 months later, October 19th, 1987.
I remember that
Black
day.
Monday, the market went down 25% in one day.
Yeah.
And
you
that
were wondering
was,
if you should have got into architecture or something else.
No, actually, that was the best thing that could have happened to me. Trial by fire, right out of the chute. I'm going to use the word naive. I was naive, but it was like, hey, we just had a 25% off sale on all these great companies.
And you still say that to this day.
Absolutely.
These are the times for opportunities if you can do it.
Absolutely. I mean, look at your wife. She probably shops at Kohl's.
Sometimes.
Okay. If Kohl's has a 30% off sale.
Plus another giveaway discount ticket for another 20%.
Right. She is absolutely going to be spending money.
Sure.
Why would you not do that when these same companies put their companies on sale?
Right.
For 30% off and, twice, 3 times in the last 50 years, 50% off. Why would you not do that? I mean, and I'll use the example. Remember 2007 to 2009?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
My net worth, I thought I was worth more dead than I was alive at that point.
And you probably were. Thank God Jane couldn't find the pillow. Here, Bruce, smell this.
I did have life insurance and lots of it.
Right, but these great companies of America and the world, the price went down by 50%.
Yeah.
Okay. But you can't tell me that these great companies sold 50% less product.
Right.
You didn't drive 50% less.
Right.
You didn't eat 50% less food. You really didn't, spend 50% less on gas, electricity, anything like that. All the consumer goods, people were still buying them.
Right.
And today, if and when the market goes down 50%, you can't tell me that Apple is going to immediately stop selling 50% of their cell phones or laptop computers. You can't tell me that Microsoft is going to sell 50% less product, that Exxon is going to develop 50% less gasoline.
Right.
They've just changed it to make these companies more valuable at that price. And when we go back to that 2007, 2009 time period, if you bought the S&P 500 at the high, you paid like $15.67. It immediately started going down to an intraday low of $6.66, sign of the devil, and then started rising back up to where it is today. The S&P, I want to say it's like 52, hang on, 58.96. So it went from 1567 in 2007 to 58.96 today, or from the low 666. It's gone up almost 10 times in the past 14, 15 years. That's a game changer in people's lives, Bruce.
Sure.
That's the time when you see that happen. Sell everything you own that's not nailed down, that you can't buy back later cheaper.
So anybody who followed that advice from their wealth manager back in 2007, let's say, or 2008, and had an index, because a lot of people do the index funds, right?
Sure. But it doesn't.
It doesn't have to be.
It doesn't have to be, and it doesn't matter.
Right.
The point is, all these great companies did exactly that.
And that's why they're still in business.
And that's why they're still in business. I mean, we're talking about the most innovative, the most well-financed, the most, the largest, greatest companies out there that produce all the goods and services that you and I buy, use, eat, wear on a daily basis.
So we're talking about Eb's career and different things, his experiences in the finance world and advisory world. Let's tell them what your company's name is.
Oh, okay. Wilkinson Wealth Management.
And what does your customer profile look like?
So I got rid of all my customers a long time ago. I only have clients.
Okay.
And the difference being the clients are the people that you take care of and come to you.
Right.
Customers go to Bash's, Safeway, Fry's, wherever. I don't want, and I can't help somebody who's going all over the place. And they shouldn't want me to either.
Right.
I want to get deeply involved in their lives. Typical profile, $1 million plus of investable assets, typically 50s or a little bit older. People that don't want to do it themselves, even if they know how to do it themselves. People that want somebody to guide them through. I mean, you know, I say, you know, my tagline, aside from we manage money for gun owners, which, by the way, that's the majority. The overwhelming majority of my clients are gun owners.
And why?
Couple of things. Number one, I'm heavily involved in the firearms industry. I'm a certified firearms instructor. I've been involved with the NRA for 20 plus years.
And you're a serving board member?
I'm a serving board member right now. Hopefully in next April, when it comes around again, I'll be reelected to the board.
I'll be voting for you.
God bless you. I'll get a link out to everybody. But here's what I found for firearms owners, gun owners. Number one, more likely than not, they're conservative.
Yep.
Number two, more likely than not, they have a religious bent to them. They believe in God.
Faith-based, yeah.
Yeah, faith-based. Number three, they are more likely than not willing to wait and not do anything stupid and not panic.
So a lot of people, when they saw the different indexes going down, what was it, 10%, give or take?
Yeah.
It's like their world was ending, and they started telling some wealth managers, sell, sell, sell,
Get me
sell.
out.
So what was your advice, and then what's been the result since then?
So what my advice was, now bear in mind, from the start of the year to today,
Yeah.
the Dow is down 0.89%.
Yeah. So a little less than 1%.
Right. From the high, which took place, around the February timeframe,
Yeah.
to the low, it was down about 15%.
Okay.
But the average peak to trough movement of the markets during any one year is 15%.
Right.
So when we were down 10%, I was telling people, look, we're not even 2/3 of the way to a normal year yet. The only thing you should be panicking about is finding more money so that when we get down there,
Right.
you can put it in.
So your
But this is
your opportunity. You look at opportunities and not necessarily reacting to every little movement in the market
No.
day by day.
No. It's no different than how many people look at their house value every 15 minutes.
Well, there's some people who do, and they're probably the same people who are saying, "Get me out of this stock."
Exactly. Not everybody is meant to have money, and they'll do everything in their power to make sure that that takes place. To include trying to trade, which, go ahead and trade, but, statistically, you're going to do much poorer than you
Isn't
could.
that sort of a vanity thing?
Absolutely.
People, who don't have anything better to do, they decide that they want to play poker every day in the stock market.
And that's exactly what they're
craps,
doing.
right?
And that's exactly what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
But so for us, when you come in to see me, we're going to start
office out on Tanca Verde.
We're going to start each new relationship with a written financial plan.
Yeah.
I'm going to sit down, ask.
And I know because we did that.
Right. I'm going to ask a whole bunch of questions. Everything from tell me about your debt, tell me about how you buy and sell your cars, tell me about how long do you plan on living where you're living. I do all that. We put together a written financial plan to take you from here to the other side of the dirt when you flame out at 92 and your wife flames out at 95. I was with a couple yesterday.
Invariably, that's the way it is.
Right. I was with a couple yesterday. She says, "Oh, I'm not going to live that long." I said, "Okay, just call me a week before you die. We'll liquidate the portfolio and send you the money." And I told her, I said, "Look, you may say 85, but if I plan your finances to where you die when you're 85 and you wake up at 86, you're going to be pissed."
Right.
Nobody knows how long we have, but I know statistically, if you're 95, you're in the 70th percentile. 30% of the people live longer than that.
So let's talk about the other side of the advisory work that you do with your clients, and that's debt relief, right?
Correct.
Talk about that.
So when somebody comes in to see me, if they have consumer debt, we're not going to be investing any money that's not IRA rollover money, 401k rollover money, or anything like that. The reason is if they have debt, they're paying more in interest than I could ever give them a return on.
Yeah, it's an important point.
So I'll sit down as long as they're willing to. They've got to be a willing participant. I'll sit down, structure a process to get them out of debt over a short period of time. And I'm going to tell them, look, your next 3 years is going to suck. It's going to be rice and beans, beans and rice,
Maybe a little hamburger helper along
right.
the way.
Yeah. Or, as they said in what was a vacation, Chevy Chase. I don't know why they call it hamburger helper. It tastes pretty good by itself. But we structure it. I follow Dave Ramsey and I use his principles in doing that. We list the debt, smallest to largest, and we concentrate on the first debt, the smallest one, and pay everything we can towards that, making only minimum payments towards everything else to get rid of that. And then we move to the next one, then we move to the next one. Dave Ramsey calls it the debt snowball.
Yeah, and it's sort of in order of importance, not
Correct.
not what you'd like to do sometimes.
Correct.
Taxes that you owe, a
Correct.
huge issue because of the interest that's charged, plus all the penalties and,
Right.
and every other exposure that you might have, right?
Right. I just got somebody out of debt 3 weeks ago that I'd been working with for 4 years. they only owe on their mortgage now. And we've put together the design that we've been using. Their mortgage is going to be paid off in 3.5 years.
Yeah.
I've had 2 people pay off their houses this year alone. They're ecstatic. They're in tears. And
it's hard working out of debt, isn't it?
It is. It is. It's really easy getting into debt. It's hard working out of debt. The first thing I tell them, cut up your credit cards. I mean, not figuratively, literally. We get on the phone with the credit card companies, say, hey, I want to cancel my card. Well, if you do that, you won't be able to charge anymore. Exactly. That's the idea. And we have them cut up the card, put it in a bowl, and move on. And now the reason that we do that, not that credit cards are bad or evil, it's that if you can't control it, just like anything else, you have to get that out of your life. If you can control your credit card spending and pay it off every month, God bless you. I'm a big believer in cash. I pay cash for virtually everything except hotels, airlines, and rental cars. I go to the restaurant, I'm pulling out 20s, 50s, and 100s and paying the bill.
Big roll of money.
Yeah,
getting wads.
Getting the receipt. Because number one, you can't hack a $100 bill.
Right.
And I've had my credit card hacked before. Number two, if you're watching yourself spending that money, it's a lot harder to spend $100 than it is to swipe the credit card or the debit card. But I'll work with these people to get them out of debt. And then we work to build wealth. And, I've done that. I've had several people that I've taken from debt to liquid millionaire status. One guy, I'll call him Leo, because his name is Leo.
Good.
I met him in, I'm going to say 1996. He came to me and he asked for my help. He had $5,000 to his name. And that was his net worth. And I want to say 3.5, 4 years ago, I called him up. I said, Leo, sit down. He said, okay. I said, your account right now is over $1 million. He started crying. He never expected to see that.
So full disclosure, Eb and I have worked together. We're friends. He also handles wealth for our family, for myself, for my sister, and everything that Eb has ever talked about, he practices every day. And yes, Eb is a sponsor here, and yes, he is my co-host, and yes, we are friends. But I've recommended him to many, many of my friends who have some of the same issues that Eb has talked about here the last few minutes. And this works. This works. Getting out of debt is a huge thing. Overspending, and people think if they still have the credit card in their hand, that
they still have money.
Yeah, or if they still have checks in the checkbook,
right?
They have money. That's not the way it works. And Eb has been a welcome relief to hundreds, if not thousands, of people over the years that he's been doing business. So you'll hear his ads on our show, and Eb will be with me both in studio and from his office on Zoom every week with us. And in addition to giving very sound advice, Eb has some pretty good political and public policy kind of sense as well. And I'm glad to have you on the show and happy that you're my friend. And let's go ahead and take our second break here at the bottom of the hour. I hope we have our next guest sitting in the chat room with us at some point. You're listening to Inside Track on the Live the Dream Media Network. No channel flipping. We'll be right back.
It's termite season.
Hi, it's me.
And bug bugs fear the blue trucks from Essential Pest Control. Go blue at Essential Pest Control. We'll eliminate those bugs, bees, and termites. And stop paying too much to that national provider. Buy local for great service and affordable rates. Call Essential Pest Control because termites fear the blue.
Run for your life!
Call for the blue trucks from Essential Pest Control. 886-3029. That's 886-3029. Or check online at essentialpest.com.
This is Eb Wilkinson with Wilkinson Wealth Management, where we manage money for gun owners. What does it mean to retire comfortably and remain comfortably retired? It means designing a plan that allows you to do the things you want to do, outpace inflation, and never run out of money in your lifetime. If you want to retire comfortably and remain comfortably retired, call me, Eb Wilkinson, at 777-1911. That's 777-1911 or WilkinsonWealthMGMT.com.
I'm proud to welcome my good friends at Tucson Iron and Metal Retail to Inside Track as an advertiser. Jamie Kipper and her staff are conservation experts. They sell round and square steel tubing, metal plate and roofing materials, as well as new and used steel, aluminum, and stainless steel to ranchers, artists, interior designers, roofers, as well as you do-it-yourselfers out there. Tucson Iron and Metal Retail is open Monday through Fridays, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., and Saturdays, 8 a.m. to noon. Tucson Iron and Steel Retail, 701 East 36th Street. Call 520-209-1576. That's 520-209-1576. Or go to TucsonIronRetail.com. Come by and be sure to ask for Jamie. Tucson Iron and Steel Retail. This is what conservation and repurposing is all about. Welcome back to Inside Track. Eb Wilkinson and myself here at Live the Dream Media. And you may have read some information. There's certainly talk on TV about how younger Americans, Gen Zers and Gen Yers, have really turned, as they form a family, as they buy a house, as maybe they're making a little bit more money, they're voting Republican. Well, the other interesting
That's
thing,
been huge.
Yeah, it is. It certainly helped President Trump win the 2024 election. What we don't hear as much about, our next guest, Sean Carney, is going to talk to us here in just a moment when we can get him up on the screen. Gen Zers are returning to faith. More Gen Zers going to church, to synagogue, wherever they may be. And we're already seeing some of the impacts of that. And Sean is a person who has been involved in various activities in the pro-life movement. And we'll get to him in just a second. Do we have Sean with us yet? Okay. All right. And Sean came to us here in the last day or so through another great organization, American Principles Project. We've had Terry Schilling
was great
on the old terrestrial radio. And I tried to get him a couple weeks ago, but he wasn't available then. But Terry speaks truth to power, and Terry is a great voice for traditional values, for faith-based individuals. But really, his philosophy, American Principles Project, just makes sense because of the way that they look at the world, and it's pretty interesting. Let me try to get this up on my laptop. So Sean has been involved with 40 Days for Life, A Light in the Darkness, and young people are finding their Catholic calling, and I'm sure the Protestants and the Episcopals as well, and the Baptists and the Methodists and so on. He may have some comments for us on the new Pope that's just been selected. But faith was from the very beginning of newcomers from the old world in this country, in this body. Faith was at the center of everything.
Which is why they came. Exactly,
because of the persecution that they had back home, whether it was in England or France and so on. So, we too oftentimes we think of faith as having some sort of a matchup with Republicans or Democrats. And that's really not it, because this isn't about R or Ds or independence. It's about what's in your heart. And
well, one of the problems that I have with that, and when it comes to the Democrats, it was 3 or 4 election cycles before where they talked about mentioning God at the Democratic National Convention. They denied it 3 times.
Right.
Where we heard that before.
Right.
Bruce, it's a major problem when, whether you're an R, whether you're a D, whatever, you don't have faith in your life, and you actively run against that. It's an issue. And now these young kids are realizing, oh, we need this in our lives. They see they're missing it.
And look, whether you are faith-based in your thinking and in your heart and in your everyday activities, it doesn't mean that you can't be a Democrat. It doesn't mean that you're necessarily a Republican. It is a way of life.
Right. It's not a political stance.
It shouldn't be, but religion, faith has turned into something that it's like identity politics.
Correct.
And the Democrats work it to death. And it should be colorblind. It should be politically blind. I go to synagogue, and I was not a synagogue goer for a long, long time, because I never really felt that I had a home in a particular synagogue anymore when rabbis changed or locations changed. And I found a synagogue, a wonderful rabbi who I have learned so much from, and he's not preaching the gospel, if you will. He's talking about this 5,700-year tradition that Judaism brings to the world. And religion, it makes sense to me now in my life. And it's why I want to, it's one of the reasons that I changed the show from Saturdays, because I would take hours in the morning before the show started to prepare for it so I could go to synagogue.
Right.
I mean, I long for that. I long for the spirituality that I felt by what we were doing. And I felt the fellowship that I had with everybody who's in that room.
So how big is your congregation at the synagogue you go to now?
It's going to go up a lot, because we just raised a bunch of money and bought a building that'll be our permanent home for years and years and years to come. But I would say there's probably about 200 people that may relate to about 50 family groups.
Okay.
But with this new synagogue and everything that comes with it, I think we'll probably double or triple in the next 5 years.
How many of them are young? How many of them are I'll use the word children?
So
under 13.
So what's really great about synagogue going is that kids are running around, screaming sometimes and playing, and they're going back and forth, and they've got young mothers and fathers who are there. Now there's a couple of, I call them shooers, right, who are going shush shush, but having those kids in the synagogue is really a wonderful thing, and kind of reminds me of when our kids were young. I've got a 41-year-old and a 45-year-old, and now they have little kids. And I want them to have those experiences where they feel comfortable in the synagogue.
If they're not crying, you're dying.
Do we, Joe, have we got Sean hooked up yet?
No, we do not. He didn't come to the camera yet on his end.
Oh, okay. Well,
we're just going to keep going.
Yeah. So
let's go back to your synagogue.
Yeah.
How old is it?
So the synagogue itself is probably close to 20 years.
Okay.
And we've had the same rabbi from the very beginning. And I go to to a Orthodox synagogue. It's in Coronado,
Right.
and the Chabad movement, the Lubavitch movement in the Jewish religion, is sort of interesting how they do synagogues. There's usually one leader, okay, who sort of has what, in a retail sense, he has a territory.
Right.
And rabbis in the Lubavitch movement are sent all over the world, not just to San Diego, not just to Montreal, not just to Zaire, okay? They're sent to cities, they're in 48 states in America. They're in all the Canadian provinces. They're all through Latin America.
Right.
They are on all of the continents. And my first real exposure with the Lubavitch movement was in Lvov, Ukraine. I was there in 1998. And somehow, because I certainly didn't broadcast it to anybody, somehow when I arrived there on my own, not with a group, within less than 24 hours, the rabbi came, the Chabad rabbi came and sought me out in my hotel room. I was staying there a Friday and a Saturday and a Sunday. He invited me to Shabbat dinner, and we had many conversations during the time I was there. And, these guys, they're the ones that have, they wear tzitzis, which is like a kind of a shawl that they wear all the time. They're usually dressed in black. They got long beards. They've got
the dreadlocks.
The younger ones, yes. But they would be great most of the time in like a motorcycle gang because of their great beards.
And how many knots are in the tzitzis?
Knots? Well, I think there's 617.
613.
13. I gave him a few more just for credit. And it changed my life. And it made me look at myself differently and our family differently. And in my life, it really has benefited me in those times of trouble. I've had different health issues through the years, and knowing that I was part of this fellowship, part of this community, was a great source of support for me. And every day, every service that we have on a Saturday or Friday night, there's always a part of that service where they do a blessing for somebody who's in the hospital, or I go to my mother's and my father's yard site every year, the anniversary of their passing, and it just fills your heart completely. And it's been quite a thing. And I look, my experience is within Judaism. Interesting thing is, my dad was bar mitzvahed in New York City, not at age 13, but at age 10.
Wow.
Because his father had been murdered in 1935. And in the Jewish religion, if you've lost your father,
you're the man of the house.
The custom is that you can have your bar mitzvah at a younger age. Me, I had it at 13. My Torah portion, they probably cut down to a third because I was such a bad Hebrew speaker. My dad never really was much of a religious Jew until he went to Israel the first time in 1957 as a Maccabi athlete. He was a world-class weightlifter. And from that point in time, even if he didn't go to synagogue on a regular basis, he knew who he was, and he was very, very comfortable with himself. And I think no matter what your religion is here in this country, faith, if it's going to make a difference in your life, it's a game changer.
It's always made a difference in mine.
Talk about that.
And so I remember I lost my wife in 2002 in a car accident. We were on vacation. I was with her. Tragic accident. She died. Got to the hospital, Bakersfield, California.
Wow.
And, I was taken into the hospital.
You were injured in that same accident?
Yeah, I was. Outwardly, nothing major. Seatbelt rash, things like that. Getting to the hospital, this black doctor that looked like Whoopi Goldberg comes out, big smile on her face. She says, "Hi, how can I help you?" I said, "My wife just died in a car accident that I was in. You can pray." She immediately gathered everybody in the ER. So there's probably 15 or 20 people into a prayer circle and prayed like only a black woman can. She finished up. She says, "Okay, now let's take care of your body." That, a time that could have pulled me away from God.
Sure. Yeah, you're wondering, why me? Why my wife?
Truly.
Why has this happened?
Truly brought me closer to God. Then I remember probably 6 months later, having a really hard time at night. Can't sleep. It's just bad. I remember praying. I said, "God, I can't do this. I need your help. I just can't do this anymore." And I went to sleep. And I remember having a dream. There I was, St. Peter's Basilica. Now, bear in mind, I've never been to Italy.
Mm-hmm.
Never been to St. Peter's, just seen it on TV. So here I am.
But you watch the agony and ecstasy with
Right.
Charlton Heston. That's as close as you got.
So there I am in the basilica in my dream, looking up. There's the Pope. Place is crowded. The Pope's blessing the crowd. He disappears. The crowd parts. I go walking around the building, and I run into the Pope with his entourage. And bear in mind, I'm Episcopalian. I'm not even Catholic.
You're Catholic light.
Yeah, all the sin, half the guilt. There's the Pope. I said, "Your Holiness." He said, "My son." I said, "I'm having a hard time." He says, "I know all about it. You're going to be fine. Your wife is in heaven. She is fine." He puts his hand on my head, and I woke up just like that. So it's now 3:30 in the morning. I'm wide awake, and I felt as though the whole burden of the world had been lifted off my shoulders. It was incredible. Then I remember at probably finally 6:30, I couldn't wait any longer. I called my pastor.
Mm-hmm.
I said, "Steve, I have to tell you what's going on." And I told him, and Steve's like, "Oh my God, that's incredible." I said, "Yeah, but Steve, I'm not Catholic." And why the Pope? He said, "Maybe everybody else was busy." But things like that, Bruce,
Yeah.
to me, how can you not believe in God? How can you not believe in God?
It's not a coincidence.
No.
And
here I am with tears running down my face.
well, and they're the tears that we all have. It's just those emotional times. My son Mike and I talk from time to time about when my father died in 2012. We had just left him that afternoon. We had spent a lot of time in his last days together, and left him there in Encinitas, California. Came back home. His nurses, because he had 24-hour care at their house, said, "This guy, he's so tough. I think he's got another couple of weeks." And I knew that probably wasn't the case, but so I get a phone call from my father's wife that he had died at 10:56 that evening, Sunday evening. And I called both of my sons one at a time. And Mike, I reached first because the other was back east. It was like, 1 o'clock in the morning or so. And he said, and when I gave him the news, he said, "Dad, you'll never believe this, but right before you called, I saw Papa in my dreams." And he was talking to his grandmother, my mother, in heaven. and she was welcoming him to join her. And they've been married. She died at a very young age. She was only 56 when she died. And that image that he had in his dream, and that story that he was able to tell, drew him closer to my father and to my mother, and to some sense that they had peace at this time and eternally. And
we are blessed.
And we are all blessed. Yeah. Well,
go back to your time in Ukraine.
Yeah.
The rabbi comes around,
mm-hmm.
invites you to the Chabad dinner.
Mm-hmm.
What is that dinner?
It's a traditional Friday night. It's chicken and soup. Not mozzarella soup, but just regular chicken soup. I'm sure there were some different side, maybe salads and so on that we had. It was really nothing special, but and I doubt there were that many Jewish people who were still living in Lvov.
I mean, you light a candle.
Sure, you light candles and we sing songs and that sort of thing. It was great.
Say the Friday night prayer.
Yep. So we're all together for that. I was actually there because my father's family was from a small village outside of Lvov called Chortkov. And actually, my wife's family on her father's side came from the same place. Actually, my mother-in-law's side came from the same village. So I wanted to go and see what life was like in Chortkov. But before I had a chance to do that, I had connected at my hotel with a Montreal-based family whose father had survived the Holocaust.
Wow.
And we went, I'll call, he was almost like a shaman-like sort of a figure, a Jewish guy. And he told this family that he knew where the killing field was in this little village outside of Chortkov. And he said, I can take you to the place where your family died. And we went there. It was kind of a forested area close to a farm. And we started saying Kaddish, the prayer for the dead.
Sure.
And it was his family and this man, this religious man, and myself. And in the middle of saying Kaddish, this old woman came walking our way. And in Ukrainian, she's telling this religious man, it didn't happen there. It happened over there, about 50 yards away.
Wow.
And she talked about the day that the Nazis came to kill everybody, the death squads. And she's telling this story in vivid, graphic detail about what happened because she was there. And while that was happening, a kid came up on like a little bike. He's maybe 8 or 9 years old. And he's listening to this story being retold. And he never knew that there was anything that ever happened there.
Wow.
His mouth was like dropped. And she sounded as though she was giving a weather report. And it was an incredible experience that I had there. The next day, I went with a driver and a guide, and I went to Chortkov. I visited the town that my wife's grandfather was from, and where my family came from as well. And we went. I had done the Lonely Planet guide, and I was trying to find out where the synagogues were. And I found the main place. My wife's family were all rabbis. My family were more like criminals. So I'm not sure if my grandfather or my great-grandfather ever went to any of those buildings. But we went to the main synagogue, which was now a youth center. It had been a garage during Nazi times, and a lot of different things. We found somebody who was there, the director, and he took us around town to see all the different sites, limited as they might be.
Sure.
And when we got back to the synagogue to drop him off, I said, has anybody ever come here saying that their family came from this place and who were, religious, had rabbis in their family? He thought about it for a second. He called him a priest, okay, because he didn't know any better, I suspect.
Sure.
And he said, yes, there was a priest here, and it was a few years ago, and I have a picture of him. I said, do you remember what their last name was? And he said, Fader. And Fader was a family name for my wife's family when they were in Ukraine.
Wow.
And I have this picture of him and his wife and other people that were in the traveling group. And it just, it brought the whole world together. And on the way out of Chortkiv back to Lvov, I went to the river, and like we do when we cleanse ourselves at different holidays,
right.
I wash myself, but there was one extra treat on the way out. There was a small cemetery on the way out of town, and we stopped to see there was this older woman there, and she was tending her garden, and she was kind of making sure that the cemetery was kept clean. And she told us a little about her life. And when we went to say goodbye, she was wearing like gardener's gloves.
Sure.
I went to shake her hand. She took off her glove, and I saw her concentration camp numbers. I said, "Are you Jewish?" She says, No. Because even in 1989,
right,
it was not safe to be a Jew, even in rural country in Ukraine.
Wow.
And anyway, one of many life stories that we both have in our lives. Well, ladies and gentlemen, listeners, we didn't get to all of the stuff that we wanted to talk about today, but I wanted to make sure that you got to know my friend and co-host and a great advisor to hundreds of Tucsonans and people up here in the northwest part of the valley, Eb Wilkinson. And Eb and I will be back next week. And I don't exactly know who's going to be on the show next week.
We'll figure it out.
But we'll make it happen. We've got a bunch of people set up, though, through the summer. And watch us again next week. So until next week, I think we're 167 hours away.
167 hours away.
Thanks for listening in. Thanks for viewing us today. This is Bruce Ash.
And Eb Wilkinson.
Wishing you a very pleasant good afternoon to you.
It's termite season.
Hi, it's me.
And bugs fear the blue trucks from Essential Pest Control. Go blue at Essential Pest Control. We'll eliminate those bugs, bees, and termites. And stop paying too much to that national provider. Buy local for great service and affordable rates. Call Essential Pest Control because termites fear the blue.
Run for your life.
Call for the blue trucks from Essential Pest Control. 886-3029. That's 886-3029. Or check online at essentialpest.com.
This is Eb Wilkinson with Wilkinson Wealth Management, where we manage money for gun owners. What does it mean to retire comfortably and remain comfortably retired? It means designing a plan that allows you to do the things you want to do, outpace inflation, and never run out of money in your lifetime. If you want to retire comfortably and remain comfortably retired, call me, Eb Wilkinson, at 777-1911. That's 777-1911 or WilkinsonWealthMGMT.com.
I'm proud to welcome my good friends at Tucson Iron and Metal Retail to Inside Track as an advertiser. Jamie Kipper and her staff are conservation experts. They sell round and square steel tubing, metal plate and roofing materials, as well as new and used steel, aluminum, and stainless steel to ranchers, artists, interior designers, roofers, as well as you do-it-yourselfers out there. Tucson Iron and Metal Retail is open Monday through Fridays, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., and Saturdays, 8 a.m. to noon. Tucson Iron and Steel Retail, 701 East 36th Street. Call 520-209-1576. That's 520-209-1576. Or go to TucsonIronRetail.com. Come by and be sure to ask for Jamie. Tucson Iron and Steel Retail. This is what conservation and repurposing is all about.